from Pastries for Pets. Today I'm going to show you how to add a great, perfect amount of water to get the perfect flood consistency from Rockin Hard Icing, grain-free from Pastries for Pets. Now, Rockin Hard Icing has instructions right on the label for flooding and for details. And if I take a glance here over at the flooding directions, it does say to add 3 tablespoons of water per a cup of the dry mix out of the bag. Now, what I have done today is I'm going to add just a 1/4 cup of the icing mix right into a bowl. And then I'm going to add one of our all natural food colors, and this happens to be orange, because today I'm going to decorate a really cute pumpkin, and I'm gonna show you how to get a flatter flood consistency so it's not all raised up on you and bumpy. So by doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and open up my orange food color, and I'm gonna be careful because it could be a little bit messy, and I'm wearing white. And I'm just going to go ahead. You can measure this out, and you can make it so that you know the shade that you want of orange by using measuring teaspoons. So you can try to add like 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, whatever you like your shade of orange to be. It's all up to you. Everyone's different. Some people like lighter orange, some people like darker orange. And what I'm doing in here is I'm just basically mixing up the orange, and I'm tapping out any of the lumps. And it's easier to tap it when it's dry, so that when I go ahead and add water to it, it'll be more evenly distributed with the color. There won't be a little bit of like a darker orange in a spot or two. And then it also helps it so it dissolves easier. And it is an all natural food coloring. Not all of them have little bumps, but some of them do, the little clumps. I'm using a plastic spoon. You can use metal or whatever you like. I just like the plastic because it helps me to bend the spoon to get the little clumps of orange out easier. And that's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is give it a little final stir. Try not to go too crazy on all the little clumps of orange. But I'm gonna go ahead and add water to this. Now, if I were to use artificial food coloring, like a gel food coloring, even if it's, you can use, I think they sell all natural gels as well. So if I was gonna use a gel food color, I would actually have mixed this up with water already and then added the gel. The reason why I'm adding the powdered food coloring right now is simply because it's a powdered food color. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and add a tablespoon of water. Now, if I was using just white mix, I might just add a 1/2 tablespoon of water. But I added a powdered food coloring, so the water amounts are different. Now, on the direction, even though it says to add a certain amount of water, you have to keep in mind this is just a general amount of water. It's just to get people started, because I don't know if you're using a powdered food coloring, if you're using liquid or gel, because each of those use different amounts of water. Now, if you think about it, powder obviously would need extra water because it's a powder. And there's also the bowl size. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and add a teaspoon more water. And the bowl size matters, because the bigger the bowl, like this bowl is actually bigger than I usually use. So the water actually disperses differently when I mix it up. So you just never know really exactly how much water you might need. But that's why I'm here, because I'm gonna show you just what the flood consistency should look like. I want you to kind of ignore how much water. You'll get the hang of it. And you can, if you use the same size bowl and powdered food colors, and the same amount of powdered food coloring every time because different amounts require different waters. A beet powder might require more because of the actual beet powder food coloring might, absorb the water differently. So it's all different. And that's why I say it's easier if you just know what it should look like instead of focusing on how much water to add, because like I said, every food color is different, the bowl size is different, but this right here is the perfect flood consistency. And if you look at it, when you pick it up and you go like this, it goes right back into the actual mix at the bottom, okay? Now, if there's a lot of air bubbles, then you want to just add maybe a tiny bit amount more of the mix, like even just a little, maybe a teaspoon in there, and stir it up just to get rid of a lot of air bubbles. Air bubbles mean it's just a little bit too thin. And we have a couple air bubbles in here, but I'm going to leave them because if that was on my dog treat, I would be able to just pop it with a scribe tool and be all set. So another trick we have is a cup with a bag in it, okay? That's because I don't have a lot of different hands. So I just do that so that I can easily scoop my icing right into the cup. And I'll be all set. Now I'm going to show you another trick on how to get a flatter flood background on your dog treat, because there is a trick for that. And then, all right, so this is the finished one. I'm going to put the finished one aside and take this little guy here. And then I'm going to take my bag and I'm just gonna shake it down. I'll get my air out as much as I can. And then I'm gonna twist it. Most of you already know how to do this. And you have bags that, you can use tips. I use tipless bags a lot because I'm used to them. And I'm just putting a little tie around it so that I don't make a huge mess. Sometimes I do use them, sometimes I don't use them. Sometimes I will cut off the extra just to make it a little bit easier to work with. And now I'm going to cut a hole in my bag, a smaller one. Okay, so now when you want to flood a dog treat, and I'll try to get my hand out of the way for you and angle it, but what I tell people to do is to simply add a line or an outline to your dog treat. Now, if you notice, I'm raising up over it. Okay. Now, I'm gonna put this down because I wanna there's little eyes and stuff in here. All right. I'm doing the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern eyes. And I'll move my hand out of the way in a second, just in case it's in the way. So this is just my own methods. You certainly can do whatever works for you. But you can see that the flood is going on pretty flat. Okay, now here's the other trick that I want to show you. I'm gonna hold it back here. So as I begin to flood, I could have made my hole a little bit bigger if I wanted to. I'm leaving it the way it is just for this demonstration, but I wanted it kind of a smaller hole because I wanted to make sure when I outlined the eyes and the mouth that I wouldn't accidentally get too much into them. If I had a bigger hole, it's just a little bit harder to control where my icing is going. So what I'm doing here is I'm icing from like one side to the other, and I'm going pretty quick, and I'm making sure it all connects. The reason why I'm doing that is because that's what helps it to dry flatter. instead of bumpy. And that's all you need to know. That's the trick. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this if you're still watching. Go in here. That's another reason why I have a smaller hole. But I want to show you something else really quick. I'm actually making sure I flood a lot, because if you take your scribe tool, or just you don't have a lot of icing on your treat, it could make it so that it dries lumpy because you're pushing it over. So you notice when I did this, I really made sure everything was filled in. And now there's just this tiny little hole right here, and that's fine. I can just take my scribe tool and just poke it in. But if it was a bigger area like this mouth, and I like took this and just spread it, your flood would probably dry a little bit lumpy. So that's just another little tip. And quite honestly, it just takes some practice, and then you're gonna have beautiful looking smooth treats all day long. I hope that helps.